Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from deltacx.com. We're a full service CX and UX consultancy. We do projects, training, and consulting. I haven't redone the Delta CX website yet, but I did put up the start of a new website at customercentricity.com. So check it out, learn a little bit more about what we're doing, and that's where the new blog is going to be. So make sure you've added that to your feed reader. So welcome. This is not going to be critical thinking. I know some of you are crying. Some of you love the Friday drama and ranting, but don't worry, there will be plenty of that because we are doing a do-over from Tuesday's office hours where my power kept going out, and we're going to do office hours, and we even have Dr. Nick, who is sweet, to join us, even though he's been doing the holiday Christmas party thing from work and all. So we will drag him into our wackiness here. As always, of course, I want to thank the people who are donating to the channel in small and large ways through the join button on the YouTube channel. Totally optional, always appreciated. You're keeping me in streaming software and chocolate chips. And you know I can't get enough of those chocolate chips, though I do have a wedding dress to fit into, so I'm gonna have to, mind it, keep a close eye on those chocolate chips, and just mostly the eye. And what else can I tell you? Yeah, people keep saying, like, did you publish your book yet? And I go, thanks, LinkedIn algorithm, for not sharing those posts with people who actually want to hear from me. So please remember that my book is actually out. You can find it on Amazon, and you can also find it on our new deltacx.media website. So check it out. We've launched a couple of new websites lately, thanks to the lovely Pier Mario. All right, with all of that fun stuff out of the way, let's bring in Dr. Nick, and we're going to start with the questions we didn't get to on Tuesday. But if you have a question, ask it in the chat or send it to the link that's on deltacx.com/links, and we will take your questions until we can't take it anymore. Dr. Nick, how and who are you?
Hello, you guys know me. I'm the noisy guy on LinkedIn still, probably very noisy if you're following along. I've also been, like Debbie says, I've been at a work lunch sort of thing, so I've had a few Cosmos, which were amazing, but I'm a one drink kind of guy, and I had two. So you're probably going to get a bit more truth and a bit more reality from me today than normal. So I guess strap yourselves in, you know. It just comes with a kind of a one of those parental advisory warning type things at the front of it.
Right. We'll mark this as definitely not for children if there ends up being some ranting. Okay, so excuse me, that being said, we are going to jump right on in with the questions where we left off last time. And where we left off when my power went out yet again was, oh, and by the way, kids, in case you are not shopping on deltacx.shop,
Ooh,
I
check
know.
that out.
So soft, so soft.
So warm in these cold nights.
So soft and warm. The book gives you a warm hug. Okay, so back to questions. What's the best way to, okay, I typed that wrong. What's the best way to get a good and valid product and UX outcome? It was a little bit of a fuzzy question, but I think that we can still come up with something here while I fix my own typo. Nick, what do you think?
I'm scrambling right here because that's such an open question. That really is a piece of how long is a piece of string question. But I know what you're trying to say. But what you're asking me is kind of everything and nothing at the same time.
Right.
What's the best way to get a good and valid product? Well, what outcome do you want, right? The general answer from the user-centered perspective is where your customers, your users are happy, their needs are met, there aren't any pain points in that journey, friction is minimal. All of that stuff. Or maybe the outcome is customer acquisition metrics or profit or reducing costs. I mean, that's what I mean. We can riff on that all day and all night. There's a bazillion different outcomes that UX or product UX is applied to. So most people, I hope what Debbie will correct me on is you usually state this stuff at the outset of the project. Like, this is what we want to achieve. KPI, meaningful KPI. This is definitely much more in Debbie's wheelhouse than me. So I'm going to kind of pass you on to her to carry this on.
Why, thank you. Back to you in the studio. By the way, this software does let me superimpose us on fake new studio desks if we ever want to try that.
I'm down.
I haven't tried that yet, but it could be like, and over to Nick with the weather. Right. So one day we should do that. Okay, so again, I agree with Nick. This question was a bit vague, and thanks to John N.A. Brown for being here and digging the swag. I agree with Nick. You've got to set these things out at the beginning, both what is the business trying to get out of this project and what are customers and users trying to get out of this project. How do we know when we have success? Too often we're only looking at what the business wants. I had this conversation on LinkedIn earlier today with someone who's an expert at A/B testing, and they were talking about how they're going to A/B test the hell out of something, but there's not enough traffic to the site for it to be statistically significant. So how are we going to know which landing page is better? And I was like, where's your qual? So
those are also good questions. Great questions.
Yeah, so I think, oh, hi, YouTube watcher. Good to see you. We'll put your question on the end of the list. We're starting with the list of stuff on Tuesday that we didn't get to because my power went out. So note that there's a few people before you, even though the show just started. So my main advice would be make sure that you have clear metrics, KPIs, success metrics, things you're monitoring from the outset so that you know what success or failure looks like and how well something is performing. How well is it performing for the business, and how well is it performing for the customer? These are sometimes different and could even be opposite. So make sure you are looking closely at that because you want to make sure that you are monitoring did we solve the customer's problem? And again, sometimes that's a little bit more qual than quant, but you want to take a look at, did we solve the customer's problem? Did we make things better for them? What was our original problem? So that's another thing I point out in the book. Are you working from good problem statements so that you can say later, we solved that problem? Or is this fluffy feature factory adventures? So again, I would say the answer to your question is technically my entire book, so I don't have a very short answer, but maybe that's a little bit of a start. And remember, if you get the book from my website, which is deltacx.media, the digital versions are available at name your own price. So you can't really complain about the price of my book. You could, but I wouldn't totally take you seriously. Because you can get my digital versions for $1. Okay, let me go to the second question that we didn't get to on Tuesday. And let's put this one in the hopper. And oops, I have to press number 4 to make it come up. I know everybody loves my super complex setup. Oops, and now my font's too big. Yeah. I want to go to sleep. I don't know about you. All right. Years ago. Oh, we have an old story. Let's roll this one out. Yes. Years ago, I tried to introduce UX design processes, research before design, etc., to a new startup. But they didn't understand and thought I was working slow and fired me. Was there something I did wrong? I have an answer to that. Nick, I bet you do too. And I wonder if they're going to be the same. Go.
They very likely are. This is about the introduction of UX and maturity and stuff. There are different styles of UX and there's different ways of doing UX, which is why Debbie and I are always saying it depends and all of that stuff. There's no rule book or laws of UX. In this specific instance of a startup, if you come in and start doing front-loaded discovery, it's whatever you do at any speed is going to appear slow, right? That's a big problem. It's not the right style of UX for the right organizational, not just maturity, but stage. Okay, that's really important. Like the UX that you do at Google is not the UX that you do at a startup, is not the UX that you do at a regular national corporate. Do you understand what I'm saying? There are different levels to this. So it's awful that you got fired, but I can understand it. This is also the same reason that back in the kind of early to mid 2010s, research was being cut out of projects in the waterfall world because they thought they could bring the delivery line in closer, right? It's like, let's speed stuff up quick, get rid of research. That was a classic meme or thought that was going around in our world. What's the answer? And that's what you're waiting for. I'm sorry, and I'll get to this really quickly. The answer is at this point you need to do like more like innovation type research, right? So we're doing much more kind of top down rather than bottom up. But what this means is rapid iteration and lots of iteration of user testing, of user research, whatever you want, of evaluative stuff, especially in a startup mode where you probably have to do a level of discovery at the same time as your generative and evaluative at the same time, because it's a wild west. You're pushing to get to market before the other guys and all kinds of other factors. This is what, okay. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Or Debbie, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do. YouTube watcher, are you the person who asked this question, or is the information you're giving to add to this, or are you asking a separate question? I can't tell. Yeah, Nick, I think I'm in kind of the same boat as you. We all agree that research should be done before design and development. We all agree on the importance of generative, explorative, discovery research, whatever it's being called. But we also all know the reality that many companies, especially startups, are speed over quality. And they probably hired you thinking you're just going to help them with some evaluative testing and fast iterations on designs. So this sounds like a mismatch on expectations. So if I did not ask the right questions before coming into the job and I end up being surprised that they don't want my discovery or generative research, you've got two choices. Either you say this job isn't a match to me because I believe in generative before whatever and I'm walking, goodbye. Or you say, okay, I have to shift gears. These people don't want generative no matter how much I say rah, rah, rah and cheerlead for it and go, yay, generative can really help you. They just want the evaluative. Then you have to switch gears and you have to say, okay, to do my best at this company, I might do no evaluative research and I'm just going to be doing no generative, and I'm going to be doing evaluative. This happened to me on some of my contract jobs in San Francisco, where I thought I was being brought into usually a short project, 1 month, 2 months, and I thought they wanted a UX designer to fix up something crappy they're working on. And there was some miscommunication at the start, and I learned pretty quickly that they did not want my design skills. They did not want my advice. They just wanted my Axure skills. They just wanted me to build a really good prototype that they could take to testing, but they did not want me to disagree with anything their designers had already done. I was just there to be a prototyper. And so in that case, I said, okay, so they don't want my ideas, they don't want my advice, but they're nice people and this is good money, and okay, I'll be their prototyper and I'll just let them know other information is available upon request. And those relationships ended up okay. And so I think that it's not that you did something wrong. To me, if I had to say you did something wrong, in air quotes, it would be not adjusting to the reality of the job. Because I imagine that if you had adjusted and said, oh, poop, this is not a company that wants the early generative research, I'm probably just doing cycles of evaluative here, then maybe you would have stayed. Would it have been satisfying to you? Maybe and maybe not. You know, maybe not a dream job, but maybe a good stepping stone. Nick?
There is an argument that says maybe generative for startups is not appropriate front-loaded, i.e., it just isn't appropriate to the nature of startups unless specifically specified by the founder or something like that, right? It's about testing the thing that people are building effectively. And in most startups, that's what it's about. So, it's what Debbie is saying. But listen, it's okay. Go on. This is.
So here's the thing. I do try to pitch startups on the generative research, but the problem is you can't talk to them about it from a UX or CX perspective. You have to talk to them about it from the perspective of product market fit. Very often, by the time a startup is bringing in a UX researcher, they've already had their idea, they've already built something, and they think they just have to follow the lean startup and just keep iterating on it forever until somebody doesn't hate it. Obviously, this is slow motion, risky, and wasteful, but they read the lean startup and they think it's lean, and it's not. So So typically what I try to explain to the startup is, okay, look, you've got something out there and you're running with it and you're iterating on it and you have some early users. That's cool. What do you know about your users? Not that much. Who are your users? Well, we think
Yes.
there are people like this. Okay, so then, usually I say, hey, look, I would suggest to you a 1 month, a 2 month project for us to be able to give you more customer intelligence so that you're going to find product market fit faster. Some of them go, tell me more. And some of them go, oh no, I don't want to stop for a month while you do a thing. And I can say, look, you can always keep iterating and doing your thing while I do my thing. It's just that at the end of my thing, you might learn how, you may or may not be going in the right direction, but would you rather find that out in a month or two or X months down the road? And P.S., why are we following lean startup when over 90% of startups fail and almost all of them are following the lean startup? Can we please get rid of the lean startup already?
No, but startup is the abused word, or it means too much to many people. Startup as a stage can be one man in a shed to, I don't know, 30 people and a couple of £1 million turnover a year. Do you see what I mean? And even seed funding and all kinds of stuff. So what does a startup actually mean? And there are stages of startup. And I guess what I was referring to is those, the early days of startup where it's usually an engineering based thing. You know what I'm saying? And you're just driving forward like mad. And if you go, hey, wait, I want to send out a survey or something absolutely ridiculous like that, yes, you're going to get crucified. Bottom line. So it's about the right style at the right time.
Exactly. There are probably a few startups that are deeply, genuinely interested in generative research, but most of them are not. And I think the best chance you have is to sell it as we can find product market fit sooner if we better understand our users and their tasks and needs. You can either understand that up front and try to build what they need, or you can just keep working in cycles of guesses. You pick. I'll be here if you need me. And Craig is here, and he's right. He says they nearly always run out of money before they realize.
This is true. Very true, Craig. Without giving away any confidences, let's just say the project that I've been working on is exactly the situation you described, i.e. build something, let's then go then work it out, all the stuff. What I've learned, I have learned that each of these trials is a lesson. What I've learned is this kind of discovery and user testing thing at the same time, because I've had to do it. Because as you're testing something, massive discovery nuggets are coming out. And I'm talking asteroids, right? Huge things that you really shouldn't have started the project without knowing. And things that have been designed, journeys built around that now have to be uncoupled and redesigned. Really stunningly bad stuff. There's a lot of power if lots of people are in this situation, by the way, where you're testing a thing and you're learning big generative discovery items. It's actually really powerful. The prototype or the code that you're testing becomes a stimulus for the generative data. And so you end up stopping, and on the video, you'll see these huge swathes of nothing happening whilst you're having this big discussion about a thing that you should have already known about, right? This is what I've learned in the past 18 months of how to basically balance those two things. It's actually a really powerful thing, is getting discovery stuff during evaluation, and probably that's a more appropriate style for the wider gamut of startup styles.
Yep,
See what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great point too. And Craig says user research is like a compass for a startup. It's not the map or the destination. It tells you which direction to head in and where not to go, what to do. It tells you where you are now as a startup, where you can go next, and what direction to head in to take you toward your business goal. I agree. We have a mountain of questions already, so I'm going to jump into the next one because I already feel well behind because we started with a long list. So this one is from Tuesday, which we didn't get to because my power went out, and it says, this may be a weird one, but any tips or favorite approach around working collaboratively in unlimited online boards like Miro or FigmaJam? How to guide people jumping in on finding information, understanding what is going on?
Honestly, no. I'm going to throw this one straight to Debbie because since pandemic, basically, I've done work on Miro and Mural, not FigmaJam. We've done collaborative work. I haven't been the facilitator of a big workshop. I've been a participant in many. I don't like it, if I'm honest. It's what we need to do, but I can't say I've got a lot of experience, so I'm going to just give it to Debbie to give you a better answer.
Yeah. So I think what I hear from the question is, first of all, if this is a live workshop scenario, then you need to be a better facilitator. You're supposed to be guiding people. You're the facilitator. If this is more of an asynchronous experience where you've set up some stuff in a Miro or whatever we want to call a shared board, someone's coming into it later, then you have to do a better job of organizing it and labeling it. If you're from UX, use your powers of information architecture. And let's do like Shazam, information architecture. Make sure whatever. Make sure that board is going to make sense to people coming into it later. Make sure, I know in Miro you can set what is the default view of the board when someone first gets there. So whether that's a bird's eye view of the whole thing or it's some sort of step one where you want them to be. Also make sure that when the board is zoomed out, you have huge headlines. It might be 200-point font when you're zoomed in, but people zoom these boards out a lot. They go to, they click the button that says show me the whole board from a distance. And if you're using small headlines, they're not going to really see which part of the board they need to jump to. So I use really big headlines on mine so that when it's far zoomed out, like 120-point type, when it's and I name my frames, and so when it's far zoomed out, people can see it. And then also give people a path if they need to go to this and then they need to go to this. I don't know if Miro or these other things let you click and something jumps to another space. I think they do that now, or have an arrow and say continue over here. That's what I would say. Kayleen says, imagine sending a newbie to a FigJam board of stickies to onboard and understand project history. I'm scarred for life. People thought that it would be better to put everything in FigmaJam or FigJam or Miro rather than Confluence or Google Docs. And I'm not sure. We have to really think about what's the best way for people to deal with this information. By the way, I wanted to take a step back. Anna posted from LinkedIn. She said, I've never worked in a lean startup environment, but I also didn't know it was so unsuccessful. If that's the case, why do people love it so much and keep following that mantra? So I think that is a very good question as to why people keep following the lean startup, even though 80-90% or more of startups fail. I cannot explain it other than a little bit of ego and a little bit of Dunning-Kruger, like it's not going to happen to us. There's always a sense of like, well, sure, other startups failed, but their idea wasn't as good as ours. This was the question that came in. Just throwing it in because it was a follow-up to the last one. Megan says, Anna, it's got to be confirmation bias. One famous startup worked using that structure, so the others that failed. I had a big fight with a lot of people when I posted an article to Medium pooping on the lean startup. You can easily find that one. Just write Medium, Debbie Levitt, lean startup. I'm sure you'll find it. And I think I got 85 comments from white men who wanted to tell me I clearly never read the book. It was an interesting coincidence. But Craig says the IKEA effect. But the interesting thing that I found was that one of my favorites was one guy was fighting me and he said, well, my friend used the lean startup book and he was incredibly successful. He had something that was based in an algorithm. So he hired a team of data scientists to write an algorithm, and they wrote a great algorithm that really made the product so good for the audience, and it took off, and he had 1 million users, and so the lean startup works. And I replied and I said, that's a beautiful story and I'm so happy that your friend is successful, but based on what you've described to me, he didn't follow the lean startup because it doesn't sound like an MVP. It is not an MVP to hire a team of data scientists to write an algorithm. The minimum viable product would probably have been some Mechanical Turk or prototype that fakes out what the algorithm does. Like, there's nothing minimum viable about that. That's just a solid version 1. So, congratulations, cool story, bro, but didn't follow the lean startup. There's nothing MVP about hiring a team of data scientists. So yeah. It doesn't seem to work. I don't know why people keep doing it other than won't happen to us. We're better than that. I think it's just ego, and as Megan said, some confirmation bias. Hey, this worked for somebody, why not us? Next question from from Tuesday when my power went out. Are there any specific skills you wish you'd see more out there in hires?
I can be really horrible. I don't want to be horrible, but I'm gonna be. The core skills of UX. I know that sounds horrible, right? But
I say the same type of thing, so I'm not going to poop on you.
Like we're hiring for this, like we're hiring people to join teams to do stuff together, people that you can rely upon to not fluff up or to, you know what I mean? And it's really hard. It's just really hard to find good researchers or good good interaction style designers. You know, it's easy to find lots of people who are good with high visual fidelity, but people who understand the deeper UX is kind of harder. And user researchers are so rare that they're just not sharing their knowledge, or good UR is not being learned, kind of, you know what I mean, shared and observed. People aren't being exposed to it. So that's the serious and sad answer, unfortunately.
I'm with you. Really nothing I could add to that. So I'm just going to go on to the next question, which is another very broad one, but why the heck not? John says, bravo. I can't put it up on the screen right now. My system's going a little wonky. But what's the best way to present research to stakeholders?
Okay, let's just hope there are no stakeholders watching, right? If you imagine your stakeholders are 10-year-olds with ADHD, you're going to totally smash it, okay? I mean this in the nicest possible way. What you have to do is effectively have a few words on a page, big font sizes, make few points per slide. You know, when you're presenting to stakeholders, less is absolutely more. Again, the thing you've probably heard me say on this show before, I say it everywhere, is people buy with their eyes. Okay, show, don't tell. If you put blocks of graphics, blocks of text, prose, you know, paragraphs of stuff, people just turn off. Right? It's visual effort. It doesn't matter who you are, especially if you're a really important stakeholder and you're time starved, you know what I mean, time poor. So make it snappy. You're a salesperson, right? It's snappy, short, engaging. Think of it like I said, like my 10-year-old on YouTube. You've got to get him. There's a lot of competition for his one brain. No, I say one brain cell. That's so rude. For his one attention cell, right? He's a lovely, bright boy, but he's like me with the attention. You understand what I'm saying? That's how I'm considered my success in UX is nothing probably to do with my research or my psychology and that BS. I'm a really good salesman and I can talk. Obviously I can talk on stage, I can sell. Being able to present is critical in this immature age of UX. Bottom line.
Oh, Anna, I think that's a comment. I do think there's got to be space for learning in production from actual customer experience. I work on a product that requires a large amount of customer data moving around between apps. Each customer's app is customized differently. Each app has a dramatically different data stored within. And each customer thinks of their data and business in a unique way and wants it handled uniquely. It's nearly impossible to get this right via a prototype. I've tried it. It was painful. So I'd love your thoughts on this, that sometimes you got to ship and learn from the pain.
Let me just reread that a couple times.
Yeah, you know, this reminds me of actually something that Craig, who's here with us today, everybody, says in my book in chapter 5. And Melissa will get
Go back.
I didn't take it down. Hold on. Let me copy and paste it and put it up. It's timed to be a minute. Melissa, we got your question on the list.
About that separately.
Yeah, Melissa, we got your question on the list. We're just not up to it yet. We promise we answer everybody's questions. We're just not up to it yet. Hold on. This was a long question, and I'm going to have to...
This was transferring customer between customer apps. And I wasn't sure if it was stakeholders or customers who had the varying requirements.
So...
each customer
So this
thinks of their
reminds
data in a
me
different
of
convenient
what
way. Yeah.
Craig said in chapter 5 in my book. Don't forget to buy my book, everybody. Customers know you suck. And Craig talked about how when you are working in UX design, you can and I've heard it so many times in my headphones because I'm editing the audiobook, I can almost quote it from memory. He talks about how you can do prototyping and usability testing and you can reduce the defects on something, but there's a lot you just can't know for these larger systems until they go out there and they start working at scale. So I think that, and Craig, you're here now, you know what I'm talking about. This is when you talked about the postcode lookup system, and you said, sure, I can prototype and test a postcode lookup system and put it through cycles of testing and wash it free of defects, you said. But you're not going to know how well this works until it's kind of out there, and as Craig's story went, and 20 million people a month are looking up postcodes. Customers have different requirements for how they want that data. Yeah, usually when people have that many different requirements, I'm usually trying to build a flexible system with a lot of customization, like make your own dashboard, set up your own data. Like I'm trying to make it more customizable to meet them. But again, we don't have a huge amount of information about what you're talking about. But Nick, jump in and join in.
Yeah, there's just a couple of things. It's what's jumping out of me is the line that says it's near impossible to get this right via a prototype. Now, what prototyping tool are you using, or how are you prototyping? I'm not suggesting this but like something like Axure dynamic panels easily can convey multiple states to handle different of your pillars of need, if you know what I mean. Potentially using master help speed that up. Another thing I wanted to leave with you is, the concept of user interface skin, uncool and old now, but needs to come back round again, because skins allow you, a UI skin, being able to change the skin, allow change data exposure or function exposure. Am I cracking up? I'm going all jumpy over there. Can you
You're
guys still hear me?
cracking a little bit, but you said your kids were heavily on the internet, so.
I might have to go inside and
be a dad.
Pull the plug. Yeah, exactly. Hang on, I'll just remind my little lovelies of their obligations. Sorry, did you get any of that?
Yes, we did get most of that. And Craig is saying, could you get customers together to try to work out one approach or move them towards one that works way better than their current fragmented approaches? Can you standardize them? This reminds me of some of the stuff that Larry Marine teaches, where he talks about like sure, you could always give people endless customization and let them build something, but sometimes you need to herd the cattle and the sheep a little bit and say, okay, based on our research and design and testing, we think we found a better way to do it. Try it this way. Craig says, instead of having to find multiple prototypes, finding one that has the same core approach. It's an interesting question.
No, but Craig, that's exactly what potentially you absolutely can do with Axure and masters. You set the master and call it on different pages, which is exactly what you want to do there. So it is the same core logic, but with tweaks, and it's completely doable, and it's great, and it works really well.
Quick note, in Axure 10, they renamed masters to components. So if anybody's using Axure 10, Nick is talking about components.
Yes, I didn't renew my license, unfortunately, at 500 quid a year.
No, it's I did, but it's expensive. Okay, let me go to the next question, which was YouTube Watcher. And this is, let's see, is it okay to have primary research, such as interviews, and include secondary research just to talk about backing up the creation a design that was made? That way I'm bringing up some type of UX to it. Ooh, I'm having trouble understanding this. With a previous internship I did, they only focused on UI projects. Management only told me to create a bunch of UI they needed for the website. Hold on, he added something to that. I forgot to paste it in.
I know what's going on here.
I presented detailed research to various units, sales, etc. Is this too long? So there's kind of two questions in here. Was my presentation to sales too long? And can you have primary research such as interviews and include secondary research just to talk about backing up? Okay, what's he? I need some help here,
This
so
is
you
like,
go for it.
this definitely screams of like post-build validation, right?
Oh, sorry, hold on, I hit the wrong button.
Oh, phew! I thought we lost you again. Lost us.
No, I hit the
This is
wrong
like
button.
post-build evaluation, right? What's making me say that is backing up the creation. What she means to say is like providing evidence of a design that was made, right? We made a thing. Now tell me it's good, or tell me what's wrong with it, or just what I'm saying. And I think what they're saying is it okay to have primary research such as interviews and also include? I think they're trying to justify a build. That's what it sounds like to me, right? There's some kind of maturity thing going on here because again, we're talking about focused on UI projects, and this might be you've got the kind of the UI mentality and you've got the UX mentality, and these are two worlds colliding. Okay, on the last bit about length of presentation, how is it too long? Okay, I think it was my late grandfather said to me, a presentation or a speech, whatever it is, should be like a mini skirt. It should be long enough to cover the subject, but short enough to hold the attention. Right? Just a bit of a crass old world anecdote, so you can kick me in the kidneys for that later on. But it makes the point, right? You use the length that you need to use. Don't use any more. Don't use any less. There's a Goldilocks amount, right? You've got to keep it snappy and engaging, but you don't want to leave content out. So think about, okay, my professor used to tell me as I'm writing, why this, why now? And if you think about that, everything you're doing, why am I saying this? Why am I writing this? And what's the point of me saying it? I'm sure Debbie's probably done this 1,000 times in writing her book. Why am I saying this? Why am I saying it now at this point? And it's the same thing. You ask yourself that in your presentation. Do I need this stuff in here? Is it contribute to a core narrative, or can it be referred to later or put in an appendix, etc.? That's how you kind of work that one out. No, don't let anyone say, yeah, 45 minutes or 10 minutes because they're talking hot air.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately this question harkens back to the one we had a few minutes ago about how do you present research to stakeholders, and I got distracted and I never really answered that. So I would answer both of these as work with stakeholders ahead of time to understand what kind of presentation they want. If they want video clips and you bring a spreadsheet, there's a mismatch. If they want a spreadsheet and you bring a Miro board, there's a mismatch. So I try to work with stakeholders at the beginning of the project, and I try to learn how do they want to get data and information in the end. Do they want a PowerPoint or slide presentation? Do they want a long form report? Do they want a spreadsheet of problems and issues? Do they want a Miro board? So work with stakeholders to find out what they want. And that way, is 35 minutes too long to present? Not if the presentation went well. Not if people got information that they needed and had better customer intelligence. Not if you presented something that was excellent. I've done 35-minute research presentations, or we've done 30 minutes with 15 minutes of Q&A. It's not that the time is the issue. It's the quality of what you presented, and did you present things the way the stakeholders wanted or needed them? Because again, if you brought a fish to a gun battle, then no matter how long or short your presentation was, it might have seemed somehow wrong.
Let me tell you something, give you a top tip. If you ever watch one of my conference presentations, it's very much like how I present to stakeholders or anywhere else. I have one presentation style and I just apply it everywhere because it works, okay? And I'm neuro and it helps me. But the point being is short, you can make it long and snappy. Snappy is the operative word here. If you need to deliver a lot of stuff. So my style is few words per page, big letters, moving quickly. So I might have 120 or 150 slide deck that I deliver in 30 minutes for a 30-minute conference thing. People are like, holy shit, man, 150 pages. How are you going to get through that? But there are transitions and movements, and it's snappy. So you can hold attention for 45 minutes without too much problem because people are into it. Also, you're giving them a little hit of dopamine every few seconds, which is basically what's driving YouTube and everything right now.
All right, so we're going to move on. Let us know if you have a follow-up there. We're finally up to Melissa's question, and oops, I need to make it bigger. Melissa says, I completed 2.5 years of a bachelor's in psychology degree at a top university, had to drop out due to personal circumstances. How do I effectively convey this experience to gain my first UX research role? Hello, Darren.
Darren?
Darren is here in the
Oh,
chat.
Darren. Hello, Darren. Sorry, I thought you had confused me for Darren, which is like 100% impossible. Hi, Daz. How you doing, big man?
Ouch.
We do share a wise grey beard, though, I think. Other than that, okay, 2.5, psych undergrad. Hello there. Psych undergrad. How would I convey this to... So this is kind of a form of signposting, right? Yes, you don't have a formal undergrad degree in psychology, but you've done the work. You need to represent that on your resume. Make sure you bullet point the bits that are really relevant here, which is all the user researchy type bits that are relevant, right? All of the research method stuff you did. This is signposting to people like me or other people who are psychology interested or driven, who will be hiring people like you. To other people reading that, it's just like talking Martian. It'll go straight over their heads. But they're not your target audience, really. You're putting this in there to make sure that you capture people for whom that is relevant and valuable, right? People who understand your value. By putting it in there, you'll be kind of cluing people up who don't know the value, who might think, oh, yeah, do you know what? Understanding research methods might be a pretty cool thing for a user researcher, which it is. That's the whole point. The whole point of your psychology degree isn't the shit about Jung or social or even personality or even biological. It's not the factual stuff. That's all super interesting. It's super relevant. It's not what gets you from A to B in UX. What gets you from A to B in UX is the research methods. That first year of absolute punishing pain doing that book, Pinnell, I think it was, whichever book you did in your era of psychology, that research, learning ANOVAs, t-tests, doing them on paper, learning between and within, learning about validity, robustness, reliability, understanding deeply these things are worth more money to you than anything in the world right now, and you cannot buy that training. That's what you need to bring out in your thing. One last point, UX psychology. Verena Gilbert Williams, I think her name is, or something Gilbert. Look her up. Look up UX psychology Verena, and you'll find her. Also, Mark Drexler are running a UX psychology meetup sometime soon, and they had like 200 people at the last one. I had no idea this stuff was going on. So I'm amazed and delighted. There's a massive UX psychology scene, unbeknownst to me, the founder, going off. Get hold of them, follow them on LinkedIn, and just get involved. I'll do some meetups for here in London, but they're claiming to be the largest in Europe, so let them run with it. You know, they've got traction, they've got velocity, but that's where you're going to find a lot of your like-minded people.
Yeah, and we've got one question after this, so we are definitely taking more questions. Nick, how late can you stay today?
Whenever, really.
All right, fair enough. The Friday night party is us. So, Kagdas, please do ask your question. We have one after this, and I see one coming in anonymously now. I don't know if that's yours, but I'll check it in a moment. So, the first thing I want to say to Melissa is if you are not getting UX research roles, it's probably not because you didn't finish your degree. In my opinion, you should not have to answer to anybody why or why not you didn't finish your degree. In general, it doesn't matter. I don't have a degree in psychology. I have a bachelor's in music. That didn't stop me from getting UX roles. So I would say don't worry that you didn't finish your degree. As Nick said, focus more on the skills that you got in those years and the things that you are able to do, and get all of those keywords and buzzwords into your resume, into your LinkedIn. If you did any research, what type of research did you do? Get all that in there. But remember, right now, it's nearly impossible for anybody to find a UX job. So many people have been laid off. So many jobs and budgets have been cut. Please, I think my main message to you, in addition to what Nick said, is Please don't imagine that you are not getting a job because you didn't finish your degree or something like that. You're not getting a job because it's an ugly numbers game. It's because there are a squillion people looking for their first new job, and now we have a whole bunch of very experienced people who were just laid off. Who do you think the company is going to pick? It's unfortunate, but it makes sense. So make sure that you're not thinking, oh no, I never finished my degree and I'm going to have to explain this to people and tell them personal stories. You don't owe them that at all. You don't need to go into that at all. And if anyone's asking you, they shouldn't be. This should just be about who you are and what you can bring to a company and to the work. And that's where you've got to stress it. Hopefully you have a portfolio that can show off some of the things that you can do. Nick, Megan is asking, could you post a list of references for UX psychology? Do you have any links or web addresses or things people can search for?
Yeah, I would. The best thing I would say is the freshest, most. I mean, obviously, there's my video on. If you look for Nick Fine, an introduction to UX psychology on YouTube, there's the video that I made in 2016, 2017 that basically kind of introduced the idea to the world. That sets it all out there. In terms of activity and reading and stuff that you can actually do, that was meant to be more meetup based and it was meant to be more specialist based. For good reasons, I had to step away because everybody wanted to learn about UX psychology, but nobody had anything psychology about them. So it wasn't about that. But there's a whole bunch of psychologists that are now grouping together. So follow Verena and Mark Drexler, Drexler, on LinkedIn, and you'll absolutely find your way to the latest and greatest kind of meetups and stuff. That's the best advice I can give you.
And one thing. Oh, sorry, and YouTube Watcher says I combined two things that he put together and I messed it up. So YouTube Watcher, re-ask your question here if we missed something. Sorry about that. And Oz is here. Good morning, Oz. How are you doing? Oz says, looking for a job is one of the most dehumanizing experiences that a human being has to endure. Avoid it if you can. I feel you there. And Cogdas will put your question on the list. So we've got one more question and then you. Nick, anything else to add to Melissa?
Yeah, Melissa, just wanted to say, right now, the UX world doesn't really value what you've done, what you can do. They just doesn't understand kind of the science of UX yet. Hang on. It is coming. I don't know when it's coming. But we've just got to stay strong, or maybe it just becomes a specialist thing like UX psychology. That's fine by me too, but as long as there's a home for us to practice what we do. But don't be disheartened when you're going to job interviews and people got no value on it whatsoever, because they just don't understand it. It's nothing personal.
Yes, good luck and keep us posted. But again, it's a terrible job market and it's not you. Don't take it personally. This question says, any tips for any UX researchers who are sharing their processes to learn from, aside from the obvious? I don't know what the obvious is, but okay. Any tips for research processes? Nick.
I don't know if they're tips. I mean, yeah, but there's so many tips to kind of like, in terms of time coding stuff, or, you know what I mean, little shortcuts that you do when you're analyzing, or I don't really know where to start. If you could be a little more specific, because there's a whole big world of research out there. Just general research tips is a bit daunting, if you know what I mean.
And I don't know what the obvious ones are.
Yeah. I mean,
what's obvious? Do design thinking. Whatever that
here's
is.
the obvious tip. Don't stop sampling until you've got a good level of confidence, or you're seeing strong repeatable patterns in the data, right? You're plateauing the data. Okay, that's a common question of research. How many people do I need to sample? How big should my sample size be? And that's another how long is a piece of string question. It's until you're confident. So if you want to sample the water temperature around the UK or the US, you're not just going to go out to Brighton and take a bucket of water out and measure it, because that's only represents Brighton's water, right? You're going to go around the country. And at some point, you're going to go, yeah, do you know what? There's no point me taking any more readings because they're all going to fall within a range. I've got it. I'm got high level of confidence that the water temperature is 27 or whatever. I hope that makes some sense. This is kind of science 101 or the basics of research sampling. I would hope that stuff is really obvious, but if it isn't, there you go.
Okay, and as for me, I would say check out the micro lessons playlist here on the Delta CX YouTube channel. Maybe that was the obvious one this person didn't want to hear. Sorry, but that would be my suggestion there. Please do subscribe here to the Delta CX channel on YouTube. We are still shadow banned and can use all of the subscription love we can get, and we hope you will tell people about the channel. So yeah, I think we need a little bit more color to that question to be able to answer it better. Okay, we've got our next question, currently our last question. Let's take a look. Font. Okay, here we go. Press 4. I'm UI UX designer in a startup for almost 1.5 years. We do no user research. We create pretty pages based on the creator's ideas. I want to move on to another job, but I feel stuck. We overwork. I can't find time or energy to build my portfolio. What would you recommend?
You see, the logical answer. Have I gone blippy again? Can you hear me?
A little blippy, but I do hear you.
The quick answer is find a new job, but that's so not reality or flippant. It's too easy to see because it's a difficult job market. Why would anybody advise you in a difficult economy to jump out of a perfectly good job? So yes, ideally in another world, in another scenario, yes, leave, go somewhere more user-centric, learn. However, another way to do it is to rescue the situation, right? The way to do it is to try to work out how you can make these guys user-centric. And that's what I do. Rather than me leaving the gig, I think, well, how do I transform these guys? Because the greatest secret of UX is that it's UX that does the transformation, not design thinking, not product thinking, none of that BS. It's UX, it's user centricity that does it. So go rogue, do it in a good way, do it in a really good, meaningful way, not like you're being naughty, that you're being naughty with purpose, right? With intent. Do the research anyway. Don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness but you shouldn't have to need to. Use your initiative. Don't wait for a manager or anybody to allow you. You do what you feel is right. Now, that's a strong thing to say because it gets me into a lot of trouble, but it also gets me a lot of very big success. So be careful how you use that, but go for it. And just mind yourself. Don't tread on anyone's toes or bring companies into disrepute or that kind of stuff. Or stay within ethical boundaries. Do the right thing, but you can do the work. You really can. I'd encourage you to try and do it anyway. You'll learn hard and fast. And you've got a network of people here on Debbie's network and on Discord and places like on Debbie's Discord to support you.
Yeah, I would actually give different advice here. So you're gonna have some options here. I think that this person has been at this job long enough to know that the company doesn't want that research. And so to me, I'm concerned that if they try to do that research, first of all, they're already overworked. And second of all, it's something the company clearly doesn't want. And I'm worried about the previous person who was like, hey, I bugged all the people at the startup about the research and I got fired. So I would probably say, look, if this is just a feature factory of UI screens, then it is what it is, and maybe you keep the job until you have the next one because it is a bad job market and you may not financially be able to walk away. The real thing that I hear in this question is, how do I find the time and energy to build my portfolio? And the bad news is you just have to. It's just the way it is. If someone says like, oh, I don't want to quit smoking. Well, your doctor said you could die if you don't quit smoking. I don't know. And so I think that while, and I hear this from other people too, so I'm not picking on you. Many people tell me my job is very demanding. We work very long hours. I have no energy. I don't want to put a portfolio together. I don't have time. I don't have whatever. And I say, do it in small pieces. Create a goal for yourself. Create 2 goals a week. Hey, this week I'm going to go back and screenshot all of the befores and afters that I worked on. That's all I'm going to do. Just this week, I'm just going to go and collect all the screenshots I need to tell my story. And I'm just going to have those. And some of them I'll use and some of them I won't. Some of them I might have to blur out or anonymize. Some of them I won't. So goal 1, I'm going to collect all my screenshots. Goal 2, okay, next week I'm going to work on writing out some of the story of the project. I'm going to say what was the background of the project and what was my involvement in the project. I'm going to explain that this company doesn't do research and it's just screens. So remember, you can do your portfolio in small pieces. I think where a lot of people get stuck is they imagine, oh my gosh, I have no time. Portfolios take hours to build. I'm just going to have to find a day. I'm going to have to take off a day or whatever it might be. You can do it in small pieces. Hey, Maya. Excel, Oz, who's Excel on Fire, says, I've been there. I've gone rogue. Be sure that this is the ditch you're willing to die in if it doesn't work out. I'm a proponent of going rogue. Just be aware that it comes with real risks. Yeah, so Nick and Oz say you can go rogue. Look out for the risks. I say I'm too nervous about the risks to tell you to go rogue. So, you've got some different options here, but I think you just have to find the time to update your portfolio with whatever you can put in there, because pretty much every job out there wants to see a portfolio. That's just it. Kayleen says Nadia has a LinkedIn offer that she's going to write your case study for you. We tore at that one a little bit on a critical thinking stream because to me it seemed like one of those things where by the time I explain my story to Nadia and by the time I give her all of the screenshots and artifacts, and by the time I check her work and make changes to it, I probably could have just done it myself. Plus, I think she was charging somewhere between $300 and $1,000 to write your case study. So you would also have to have some seriously spare money to do that. So sure, you can have somebody else write your case study, but by the time you explain it to them, give them the materials they need, and check their work, you might think, I could have done this myself.
To the question re-portfolio, agencies. I know this is a tall order, but agencies are where everybody used to learn UX. Like that's where the hotspots were, right? So if you can, for building a portfolio, nothing is faster than working at an agency because you will be time sliced across multiple different projects because they're going to squeeze every minute of billable hour out of you, which is great. It's hard work, but you will build a portfolio within months because you'll work on 2 or 3 major clients and a couple more underneath. And it's great. I mean, the problem is if you over feature one project in your folio, it looks like you haven't done that much. What you want is lots of different brands or different projects, and that you can really get at an agency. It's just getting agency jobs is hard. Be prepared to take a pay cut. Go in as an intern or junior or whatever it takes, but just get in the door because agencies can be amazing. I don't know what they're like today in UX, in the UX world. Agencies like is today. I don't think it's like it was when Debbie and I were kind of coming up through the ranks, sort of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, and I would say if you only have one project in your portfolio, it's not the end of the world, because if that's where you are in your career, that's where you are. And many hiring managers are only going to look at one project in your portfolio because that's all the time they're spending on your portfolio. Now, if you have multiple projects or multiple brands or multiple jobs, okay, that's better. But I wouldn't say, your portfolio doesn't have value or isn't finished if you only have one project. If you're still new to UX, you might only have one project, and it is what it is. So don't invent a fake project if it didn't happen. Okay.
Evaluating portfolios is very much like listening to an album for the first time for most people who are big music listeners. You can skip through, like listen to 3 seconds, and you can, it's like skim listening, and you can get a very good idea of whether you're going to like this track or not, this album or not. Same thing for folios and CVs. folios in particular.
And Anna says the process of explaining your work and visualizing your process is part of your skill set. It's what employers look at, your ability to explain the problem you worked on succinctly. Yep, that's definitely part of it. That's why when I do portfolio reviews, I remind people I'm looking at your process and your work, but also your storytelling. Okay, next question, which I kind of want to giggle at, but no offense to the person who asked it. I feel ya. It says, any field or job a UX researcher could easily transition into due to the current ugly state of UX. For context, areas that overlap UX research skills. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to giggle at you, but more like, oh God, if this were easy, everyone would be moving into it, and then it, it would all change. So, Nick, what do you think?
Well, it's a shame that you're looking at getting out. And I wouldn't lie if I wasn't saying I've done exactly the same as you. How do I earn money not doing what I currently do? Because I can't do what I currently do. There's market research, but frankly, I'd rather just cut something off. It's not my thing. It's not my. It doesn't get me out of bed in the morning the way that UR does. If you've got a psychology degree, your data science is unbelievably valuable right now, and is a lot more valuable than anything else we've talked about today. You could start to pick up some design skills because you've been exposed to it the whole way. You've been testing it the whole way. Why not sort of actually focus on the interaction design bit? Could be a way into full stack for you.
I have a different answer. So again, I don't disagree with Nick, but you will get your choice of answers today. So I wrote down 2 possible options for you, but again, with the caveat that none of them are easy. The job market is terrible right now. There's no easy job to get. Jobs are ugly, companies are ugly, and so I'm going to give you options, but I'm not going to claim that any of them are or is easy. So the first thing that I wrote down is product management. And that's mostly because product management is trying to land grab UX research. So hypothetically, if you want to spend a little time and money getting a product management certificate, which generally range a few $1,000s, you could hypothetically call yourself a product management UX research hybrid. Hey, you're looking for a product manager who can also talk to customers and boop bop a beep. I've got those skills. So one would hypothetically be a product manager job to do product management and the UX research they're trying to land grab. And the other one I wrote down is service design. I think that service design is starting to be more up and coming. Some companies are starting to understand its impact and meaning, and it would require some training, and you may or may not have the right talents or skills for it, but it definitely starts with UX research skills, but then it becomes very broad, and it's highly strategic problem finding and problem solving, which may or may not be for you. So of course, like Nick says, you can try to shift more into design, but I think that's even more diluted and uglier. So I would probably say, again, look at jobs on LinkedIn. This costs you nothing. Go over to LinkedIn. Look at product management jobs that expect UX research skills. Could you qualify for them? What would you need to qualify for them? Look at service designer jobs. Could you qualify for those? What do you need to qualify for those? I'm going to be taking a service design course starting in January because I want to get certified in it because I think it's up and coming, and I want to make sure that I have that skill set in my world. I think I already have that skill set, but I've never been specifically trained in service design. So now I'll know the formalities of it, and that's an option. So again, not an easy transition, but still options you could consider. So thanks for the question and good luck. We have another question coming in through the anonymous universe, so I'm going to put that one up. Okay, earlier Nick mentioned UX core skills are lacking. I'm an entry-level UX designer. I have one volunteer nonprofit project as my UX experience. Unfortunately, the internship turned out to be very little UX and more of make these screens and blindly follow founders' instructions. I had a lot of learnings from the experience and not much UX core skills. My question is, should I include this project solely as a learnings from UX internship, or would you suggest I not present the project in the portfolio?
No, there's always learnings. There's always learnings, right? Even when something's on fire, you've learned from it, right? You've especially learned from it because of that. There's always learnings. That's the bottom line. And because you've got limited assets, because you've got limited experience, it's not your fault. It's just you haven't been that far down the road yet. You have to make the most of what you actually have, and that means using that and using it and spinning it in a way that you're not lying, but you're not throwing them under the bus either, right? That doesn't look good either. There's a way of saying in a more neutral tone how things didn't go to plan and what you learned from it, the kind of the cold reality, the cold facts of the situation. Most hiring managers are well aware that we live in a very pragmatic, chaotic world, right? Stuff happens. Be straight about it and just don't give any company confidences or be too rude about it, and you should be fine.
Yeah, and especially if it is the only project you've done, then without it, your portfolio is probably quite empty. But I think Nick and I should take a moment because we get these questions from time to time, and I think we have to say once again how much people need to look out for these opportunities that are volunteer and pro bono and all of these free these websites and companies trying to get people for free, or sometimes you're paying, and they're saying that you're going to get UX experience. Sometimes it's research, sometimes it's design, but they're claiming you're going to get UX experience and that there's going to be a lead or senior or someone who's going to give you mentoring and coaching. I've almost never seen it happen the way it was promised. I've had so many people come to me later and say, this wasn't even a UX project, this was UI, or this was production design, or this was just make the screens the founders described, or there was no lead or senior or manager. Nobody looked at my work. Nobody talked to me about UX. I didn't level up. I didn't learn anything other than here's what a disaster project looks like. And so I want to remind people, you don't have to say yes to these things. You just don't. If you get the feeling that this is not going to be an environment in which you are going to learn and grow as a practitioner, if this is a UX project that isn't really a UX project, because now you have people, here's your future. Your future was the previous question. Your future was the person who's been working a year and a half somewhere, mostly making screens that someone else told them to make. And they're wondering how they're going to get their next job and tell a story of being able to do UX work when they haven't been able to do UX work. And I know it's hard when people when it's a down economy and people have to make money to live. So sometimes you have to kiss a frog and take a crappy job and make the screens so that you can eat and pay rent. I get that. I'm not going to tell you, say no to everything. But I think especially where these jobs are not paying, where they're volunteer and pro bono, and you end up walking away going, what did I just do? I just made some screens and I didn't do any problem finding. I didn't do any problem solving. So I think you need to investigate these a little bit more, because too many of them seem to just be not UX projects. Hey, this company wants a new landing page. Make something nice. You could put that in your portfolio, but it's hard for me to say, that person's ready to do a UX job. It's not a UX project. Nick.
That's like going rogue or renegade or wallet. I mean, Debbie's on, and it's not a UX project, but you have to make it one. I don't know if I've gone cracking up again. It looks like I've gone all Dalek-y. The point is you have to make it one. If you feel like the conditions are right for you to go ahead anyway, that's my approach. But it's not always appropriate. But if you can do that, turn it into a UX project. You be the person to do that, because you kind of have to create your own good story out of this. Otherwise, you're right. You're gonna have it's not great. So make something good out of it.
Yeah, that's for that. Nick's got a great point. Can you take a job that, or a volunteer pro bono thing, and try to say, well, this would be better with at least some usability testing? You know, again, you're probably not going to get permission for generative research, but can you at least build in some usability testing? And that way your portfolio not only tells the story of, I was able to influence a change in the project, and hey, thanks to usability testing, we made this better. So you can always try it. You can try. Hi, Wilson. Chris had a nice comment. I can't put it back up on the screen, but Chris wrote in from LinkedIn and said, hey, I'm adding to the previous question. I only just joined. Sorry if it wasn't mentioned. UX researchers could transition over to CRO, conversion rate optimization. UX research is valued and essential in this industry. Now, that's Craig's world. So that's another good point as well. We've got over in our Slack community, which, by the way, is completely free to join, or find this person on LinkedIn. We've had her on the show. Shannon Kelly, which I know is a bit of a common name. I think she's in Ohio, but she is kind of does the UX CRO thing. She's in our Slack community sometimes. We've got a Slack and a Discord. They're totally free to join. Come on over to deltacx.com/links and join them. But see if you can track down Shannon Kelly. That's her thing. And maybe even Craig would know some stuff too. Stalk Craig Sullivan on LinkedIn. Yes, I said it. Let's see. Did we answer that question? Yes, I think so. That appears to be all the questions that we have. If anybody has a question, this is your last chance to get an answer, because otherwise we will wind the show down. But I don't want anybody to say, hey, you didn't answer my question. If you send in a question and we've already gone off the air, I will answer it Tuesday. We'll be here next Tuesday with John N.A. Brown as our guest taking questions. If you haven't seen him answering questions before, you gotta come back. Okay, Preeti has a question, and what's up on the screen now. Can I use my MSc project, a behavioral science project conducted online, so it does have UI, as part of my portfolio for entry-level UX design jobs, because entry-level UX researcher jobs are hard to find, and I also just did a UX and UI design course. Nick?
I would say yes. Because again, it's about characterizing you and your thinking and your approach. It's about your kind of story, your narrative, your shop window. You know what I'm saying? It's your case studies. It's all about you. And so I've put my master's and PhD work in there. It's been in there since day one. Whether people read it or care, I don't really care. It's in there, and it's part of my story. And I'm proud of that work in the way that you're proud of your work too. Is it appropriate to put that into a design job thing? Well, I think it would suck if somebody marked you down for that. That's how I would feel about that. You know, I think it would say, okay, this is who Preeti is, and this is what she can bring to my organization or my team. That's what you're really thinking. You know, do I want this on my team?
Yeah, and I would say absolutely. I think that's a part of, I agree with Nick. It's part of your story, and we want people to know about that work. And don't feel like you have to take a master's behavioral science project and try to boil it down to UI. I think you're going to sell yourself short. Make sure you are really talking about the behavioral science project that you did. Earlier this year, I interviewed someone for a job, and at the company I was working at earlier this year, and they had, I think, a PhD in sociology. And we were looking for a senior researcher, and they'd never done UX before. And I said, I want to give them a chance. And the company said, no, we don't want to hire them. We don't want to give them a chance. They probably need a lot of training. Long story short, I checked that person's LinkedIn some months later, and they're at Google. They got given a chance. and probably that sociology PhD and their wonderful personality and intelligence really carried them. So I would say don't downplay your master's work to UI and screens and online. Please tell the whole story of that. Tell the stuff you're passionate about. We want to just see passion and not just screens. I think you should go there. Nick, anything to add to that?
No, 100% do it, because science, baby. And when I say science, baby, I mean represent science, because at some point we're going to come out of this misinformation age, and people like you have got a science heritage, science background, or foundations are going to be really valued. I also think it sounds like because you're younger in your career, you've got a much greater chance of getting these big tech companies because they appeared not to like older folk like me. But if you're younger and you've got the science about you, then I think that's a really great ticket into those places if you want to go.
And Shweta says, hello, Nick. So, we have
Hello.
a question coming in anonymously, but first, Oz wants to know, Dr. Nick, are you coming to Debbie's wedding in January?
I'm not, unfortunately, only for financial reasons, not for any other reason. January's a nightmare for contractors. I will definitely going to try to make the Sardinia, like the part 2 in Sardinia, the European stage of the wedding. But unfortunately, I would love to make it. I think it's Arizona or Colorado, or I would have gone anywhere.
Yeah, Tucson.
Yeah. I would have loved that. Financially, I can't do it, unfortunately. Sorry.
No, I understand. It is long and expensive to fly from. In fact, we have a plane change in London on our way to Arizona, so we will be changing planes in Heathrow. So we know that this is a easily a $600 round trip plane ticket, possibly more. So ouch. But Oz is going to be there.
At the moment, the UK is around, on average, about -5 centigrade, which is very cold. And none of us have got our heating on because it's way too expensive. I mean, that's the situation. It's really bad. And these are contractors on day rates. And, these are professional families sitting there with hats in the freezing cold. I'm one of them. We're all doing it. I don't know what it's like in America, but Europe is not in a good way.
Yeah, we've been trying to cut down our usage, though I have to say that our energy has been fairly priced and we're not totally sure why. And we think that, Kayleen's going to be at the wedding. We think that it's because Pier Mario ticked a box when he signed up to this new energy company, and he ticked a box that said, we want our energy to only come from renewable sources. And so we're not affected by what's happening with other parts of Europe and fossil fuels and whatever. So our energy bills have stayed the same in a world where everyone around us is going, what? My energy bill doubled. And, we're also looking at solar panels and giant batteries and stuff because we don't have a huge house. I mean, our house is about 150 square meters, about 1,500 square feet for you Americans. So we think we probably could get some solar panels and batteries going on that. But so thank you to the genius sitting over there who,
who foresaw the Russian energy crisis.
Sometimes these things just happen. So we got lucky there. But I think even without the Russian thing, that's just the kind of people we are. Like, we would have ticked that box that said, I just want this to come from sun and wind and whatever. So that worked out. So if anybody wants to come to our wedding party in Tucson, Arizona, it is January 15th. It will not be live streamed because I don't want to make everyone sign a release. So you'll have to be there. It's a 5-hour karaoke party. I will be dressed in the best South by Southwest or heavy metal splendor I can pull together out of my bag of clothes and see what fits, because I am not close to my goal weight, but I'm better than I was thanks to being inspired by John N.A. Brown. So if anybody wants to come to the Tucson wedding, let me know and I'll get you a link to the whole thing. But yeah, come karaoke with us for 5 hours in the Tucson and eat delicious Mexican food and pizza. And despite all of that being glutinous, and then a gluten-free cake, because I have to be gluten-free in America.
Sounds great. I wish I was coming. I really do.
I wish you were. I almost want to pay for it. Yeah, can you just leave? No, I
Ah,
want to meet your family, but can you kind of leave them home and just come yourself?
I
And
would love
Dr.
to.
Seth is coming. Who has been with the channel long enough to know Dr. Seth? Jude says, I wish I could join y'all. Yeah, I wish you could too. I was just thinking about you, Jude, the other day, actually. So I was like, Jude, we haven't heard from Jude in a couple of weeks. So, yeah, please come. There will be an Italy version for people who want to drop by that. It will also be a giant karaoke party. So, same thing, part
I
two.
want the Mexican food though. I mean, Italian's great, but I'm a
Not
Mexican kind of guy.
Mexican food. No, usually here it's a bit of a big grill up, you know. Somebody sets up a big fire barbecue outside and they're just grilling every animal and some vegetables. And so, but Pier Mario's vegetarian, so we've got to make sure there's some vegetables served, but usually it's a giant, and I'm definitely allergic to fish, so I probably wouldn't grill up the fish, but yeah, here it's usually giant grill up because I'm pretty sure the whole village is going to expect to be invited. So, you know what? Someone's going to be like, "Why wasn't I at your wedding? I've known you for your whole life." You know, everybody here knows everybody. So,
Well, hey, if anybody
yeah.
here owns an Arizona-based UX agency or is leading a UX team in Arizona, invite me to interview around the middle of January, and we can do this.
I like that. Check for open jobs. Check for open jobs. Cherish says Arizona Mexican food is the best. Super agree, especially Tucson. John says, when's the Italian edition taking place? That's going to be September 22 or 23. I forget the date offhand, but it's going to be that that weekend in September around 22, 23. If people can get here, they are welcome to join. We cannot guarantee that a lot of English will be spoken, as this will be the Italian version. But, you know, there are a few people here in the village who speak English, but I think there's like 5. So you can speak to Pier Mario's little cousins who are like 13, and they say, "Hello, my name is Massimo. I have
I have Google
13
Translate.
years." Yes, exactly. That's what people are saying because we're bringing Pier Mario's mom to America for the wedding, and she doesn't really speak English, and so one of my friends yesterday was like, "I'm just going to Google Translate with her. I'm just going to turn it on," and I'm like, "You do that." So, yeah, everybody save up for the Italian version if you want to come. That time in September is high tourist season here. There will be lots of things to do, beautiful beaches. Excel says, it's Oz, says, good cigar lounges in Tucson. I just drove back yesterday from 2 weeks in Arizona. Oh, good. Did you happen to eat at La Botana? That's one of my favorite places. We're going to get catering from Guadalajara Grill. I don't know if you ate there. So, yeah. Yeah, Tucson is a neato place, and so hope to see people there. January 15. Contact me if you need the details, or September in Italy. Nick, mark it in your calendar. Next job you get. So I'm sorry, I have to take off Friday, September 22 or whatever it is, and into the weekend. Yeah. And
That's
yeah, you
3
should.
renewals away.
You have no.
It's a
You'll
long
be
way
fine.
away.
You'll be fine. But you have a direct flight, so you'll be fine because you've got EasyJet from Gatwick.
I'll do something crazy like drive.
You know, we've thought about that now that we have a camper. It's like, let's go drive and see Dr. Nick and Charlene and whoever. But no, we
Do
suggest. We
It's
suggest
easy drive. Easy drive.
it's like a
Once you're on the
3-day
mainland.
drive. We checked. It's like a 3-day drive.
Yeah. It's so doable. You can do it in 2.
Just keep peeing in the bottle. But we have a camper. We don't need the bottle trick. But yeah, so I would suggest the 2.5-hour flight from Gatwick. That's going to be cheap and cheerful. That would be my tip to you, sir, based on your location.
I think driving down through southern Spain and then through northern Italy, that time of the year will be spectacular.
Well, if you can get to southern Spain, because we looked at this, if you can get to Spain, there's a ferry that goes from Barcelona to about 40 or so minutes northwest of us.
Oh, I like the sound of that a lot.
Yeah, there's
I
ferries
prefer
to
that idea.
Sardinia. There's ferries to Sardinia from Rome, Livorno, Genoa, Nice, Marseille, and Barcelona.
Huh. Okay, that's the plan. One of those.
You go,
Probably
girl.
Marseille or Barcelona. That's the toss-up.
Google Maps that and make sure you want to do that. You speaking of people, by the way, speaking of people who are road tripping to our wedding, first of all, I think Oz is driving, which is beautiful thing. Second of all, Larry Marine is going to be driving to Tucson from Denver. He said he expects it to take him 12 hours and he's just going to drive it.
Yeah, look, in the continental USA, road tripping is king. I could be a trucker in America. I would love to be. I like being on the roads. I just love it all. I don't care where I am. You stick on the local classic rock or Christian, whatever it is in the middle of nowhere radio station, and you just crack on. It's amazing. I love it. I love the back roads. I love it all. I cannot get enough. And I've probably got 20 or 30,000 US driving miles under my belt from ridiculous road trips that I've done. Love it. Can't get enough.
Dig it, dig it. So, since we're winding down, let's just remind everybody we have an extra special show tomorrow. I'm going to be teaching Axure repeaters live. So make sure you've downloaded Axure version 10 if you can. It could be the trial version. It doesn't have to be the paid version, but throw some email address in there and get yourself that Axure version 10 trial because you're going to work along with me. And I'm going to be live on YouTube and I'm going to be taking your questions, and we're going to be broadcasting from 4 p.m. Italy time for probably about 3.5 hours. It usually takes me 3.5 hours or so to teach repeaters. Yes, there will be a couple of short breaks in there, but mostly we are going to plow right through. There will also be a file for you to download at the beginning of the show because you're going to work from a file that I've pre-prepared. So make sure you get to the show on time if possible, or you're going to feel a little bit lost, or at least if you come late, start at the beginning. So that's tomorrow live on YouTube, and then it'll be archived in the Axure playlist. As for next week, I've canceled pretty much most of the shows. I think people are gearing up for their holiday adventures. But on Tuesday, I'm going to do double office hours. We'll do the early morning one for Australia and Singapore and those time zones. We'll do the later office hours where John N.A. Brown will be joining us. Jude says, repeaters are awesome. And Oz says, driving the American Southwest is fabulous indeed. I can't get enough of Arizona, Nevada, and Utah. Agree. So yeah, I've canceled most of next week's shows except for office hours because y'all are in the holiday mood. And then I've actually canceled most of the shows for the week after, between Christmas and New Year's. We are going to be taking a staycation in the camper in the southern part of Sardinia. So if you want to follow that, you can follow our travel Instagram, which is an account called Hello McLouie. HELLOMCLOUIE. That is our travel Instagram account. And just in case you're not following our dogs on Instagram, that's Canetti Perfetti, which is CANETTI PERFETTI. And of course, there's Delta CX on Instagram, but I rarely post. It's mostly a universe of dogs and campers. All right, I guess I'll play us out of here. Nick, remind everybody where they can find you and follow you and become your buddy.
LinkedIn at the moment, which is ragingly hot.
I just got an RSVP from Cherish. She's coming to the wedding. Cherish, I'm so excited.
Cool.
Okay, sorry, Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. But what I would say is, I'm getting myself into kind of all kinds of, I wouldn't say disagreements or fights, but I'm negotiating hard with UX UI. Let's just put it like that. I would hate any support you can give if you want, like calling or any civil war. But if you what I'm saying, and you want it, please do help out, because we're outnumbered by a lot of people who are talking out of their bottoms. Sorry, that's rude, but you know what I'm saying. I need some help. Thank you.
Yeah, and Cherish, don't worry, my boyfriend is vegetarian. There will absolutely be vegetarian food there. I can't tell from your RSVP if you need vegan or if vegetarian's okay, so just send me a Slack message and let me know because we are going to have a limited amount of vegan desserts. So if you can go vegetarian on the dessert, let me know. Wow, Cherish is coming too. I'm so excited. Cherish, no Dave, just Cherish. That's okay. I will settle for just Cherish, even if it's not Cherish and Mr. Cherish.
Oh, hello, bot. We've got a bot.
Oh no.
1860.
Yeah, disregard everybody. I can't even. I even put it in my new book. I said, how can YouTube not recognize a porn bot? It's so easy and obvious to recognize a porn bot. How does that even get through?
Not a high priority on the product manager's roadmap.
I hope it's not happening on channels meant for children. All right, so
it's not about quality; it's about revenue. Remember.
All right, so I'm going to play us out of here, but hey, I'm going to see everybody tomorrow. I might still be wearing this sweatshirt. Forgive me, it is so soft and lovable, but I promise to put on a fresh shirt under it. And I will see everybody soon. Dr. Nick, be well. I'm sure you and I will be in touch soon. And see everybody tomorrow for Axuring. Happy everything, everybody.
Happy holidays, happy Kwanzaa, Christmas, Hanukkah.
Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are